But the way they do the debates, I think, is the wrong way to do it. I think they should have a conversation. I think you and Kamala, you sit across the table with no one in the room but the two of you. Of course you're not going to shout at each other. Of course you're not going to insult each other.
I mean, it may get... they used to do it that
Hopefully it wouldn't, but that would be the way to do it.
They used to do it that way in the old days.
To put cameras on you with no one interfering with with checking whether or not it's factual, especially when it's biased, because they checked you all those times and they didn't check her with clearly things that were inaccurate, right? So have two people just have a conversation with each other without a time constraint. And also this idea they cut off the microphone.
Well, and no crowd.
No crowd. Crazy too, because you're good at working crowd.
I would rather have a crowd.
Of course you would. You're good at crowds.
But I had no. So they gave me an alternative. I don't think he wanted to debate.
Why did they want no crowd?
Because
what was the argument?
I think they thought I wasn't going to accept it. So I believe what they wanted to do is have me not accept. So they gave me a deal I couldn't refuse, and I said, I'll do it, okay? It's like the mob.
Right.
I'll take it. So they came to me, they said, we'll debate Joe Biden. You know, that thing got tremendous ratings too. That was crazy. But we'll debate Joe Biden, but you can't have a crowd. They also wanted sitting down. I said, that's the only thing. I said, look, you gotta stand up. You can't really sit down.
Right.
You know, in the old days they did sit down a little bit, but
he gets tired.
You gotta stand up. And they agreed to it. It was a very tough thing. It almost killed it. They wanted to have like desks, we said. I said, I think we should stand up. And that was the only thing I asked for. I said, we got to stand up. I thought it looked bad for like the public, but they said no crowd and cut off the mic. And I said, I can live with it. I mean, I can live with it. And they thought I was going to reject it. And then they would say he didn't want to debate Sleepy Joe.
Right.
That's what they thought was going to happen.
Well, they tried to say that with you and Kamala as well. They tried to say that you didn't want to debate her as well.
No, but by the way, with her, number one, I'm leading. Number two, they also said it with the primary. So I had like 10, 12 guys, right, in the primary. No stupid guys. I mean, they're governors and they're senators. They're not stupid people. Some are stupid, but not all of them. And all my guys said, you have to be in the debate. I said, why? I'm leading by 74 points. The closest guy to me, I'm like 60 points, 70 points higher. Why would I stand there like an idiot for 2 hours and let every one of them scream at me, I'm going to be the focus? What?
Right.
And I said, I'm not debating. And it was a very smart thing because, it was, they just killed themselves.
The Republican primaries.
Yeah, the Republican primaries. I like debating. I think you have to debate. But it
has to be fair.
I like debating like the Rosie O'Donnell debate. I like debating when you have a crowd. Remember the Rosie O'Donnell?
Yeah, it was very funny.
Megan, crazy Kelly. Thing, Megan. That was a hell of a question, man. If I didn't come up with that answer,
it was a great line.
Well, what it was is, we had 28,000 people. That was the Cleveland Arena where the Cavaliers played.
Right.
LeBron James. I'm not a big fan of LeBron James, but he is a good basketball player. But that was and when I said that, the place went crazy. And she kept talking. No, she had like 10 other.
Yeah, well, Megan said you said it to other people, and you admitted you did. But it was funny. It was a comedic timing moment.
It was fun.
That's what they wanted to avoid.
It was lucky I did it because she was drowning. Oh, she wasn't finished. That question, but she kept talking, but you couldn't hear. To this day, they don't know what she said, but it wasn't buzzing. So anyway, but we had a good time.
Well, it's comedic timing, and that's the reason why to have a debate in front of a large audience. And then they probably
how did
thought
I do
you
with the Al
stacked
Smith dinner? I got very good reviews on that.
That was great. Very funny. Very funny
reviews.
Stuff. The Tim Wall stuff was very funny.
Tim Wall's, yeah.
He's funny.
That's a real beauty.
That's a crazy one. She said that she had picked him, and this is one of the questions I want to ask her, when she was sleep deprived. She said she was suffering from sleep deprivation when she picked him, which is just like, hey, maybe take a nap.
So I was, okay, look, let's see how it all turns out. I think we're going to win. I think we're way ahead now. I think we're way ahead. But
can I bring you back to 2020?
I think they're going to look at two things. They're going to say they should have had a primary, even if it was a short primary.
Yes.
They shouldn't have picked her. And then she's going to say, I shouldn't have picked this guy.
She shouldn't have picked that guy.
That guy's
just
disaster.
the lying about Tiananmen Square.
Everything.
Admitted in that, the military record, assistant coach versus head coach. Yes.
Little things. So I did McDonald's last week.
I saw that.
And I actually got a call from your friends at Google, from Sundar. That's pretty good, right? He said, this is the biggest thing we've had in years.
At McDonald's?
At McDonald's. Did you know that? It was one of the...
It was funny.
Who's a great guy, by the way. But he said, This McDonald's thing, I want to tell you, it's one of the biggest things we've ever had on Google. It just hit. But the reason I did it, and I actually, you never know about this stuff. I thought it was a throwaway. Mm-hmm. I didn't think our conversation was a throwaway, but I thought I'd walk in, and that was only to highlight the fact. And I have a friend, he owns like 56 of these McDonald's, and he said, "You want to use one?" I said, "Yeah, I love it." So we went there, and the crowd was crazy. They had 28,000 people around the whole thing. Did you see the outside? It was crazy. The cars couldn't get through. Secret Service was not exactly thrilled. We had no idea what the hell. But I went into the place, and I did the French fry thing, and it just hit. But that's like in life. Sometimes you do. I thought it was like a quick throwaway. We're going to be there for 15 minutes. Then I said, I've worked here for 15 minutes, which is 15 minutes more than she worked here. She lied about McDonald's. And
is that proven that she never worked at McDonald's?
Well, McDonald's has no information. No, she has no information. There's nobody. The manager said she never worked there. It was a certain place, and he said they never. No, she lied. She's a liar. You know what they do? They'll say, like, on any one of the questions, they'll say, it's the exact opposite of what I say. IVF. He's against IVF, the fertilization.
Right.
And it's the exact opposite. I came out immediately strongly in favor. And they do ads. I'm against it. It's wrong. On every single topic. And, she changed policies on 15. I've never seen anybody change on more than one. You can maybe get away with one. Her whole life, fracking, every single thing that she was for, the confiscation of guns. She wants to confiscate. Now she's saying everybody should have a gun. In fact, we're going to get her a MAGA cap. I'm going to send her a MAGA cap. But she's changed. And I don't think people are buying it. Well,
some people are buying it because they want to buy it, because it's blue no matter who. There's a certain percentage of our population that's going to vote Democrat no matter what.
That's true.
They're pressured. There's their community, their ideology. Left is good, right is evil.
I don't understand why. Okay, you have a wall, or you have I built 570 miles of wall. Everyone said, I built a lot of wall. Exactly the stuff. But you have a border. What I don't understand is who would want people to come into our country from places unknown, like sometimes they'll say about a fighter, from parts unknown, right? Remember Haystacks Calhoun, from parts, he says from parts unknown, the oldest, those are the old days, that's even before you. But who would want people to come in, pouring into our country? We don't know anything about it.
But I want to ask you this. Why do you think they're doing that?
I think because...
Do you think they're trying to buy votes? Do you think they just want cheap labor? Like, what's the idea?
There's a couple of theories. They hate our country, they're stupid, or they want to buy votes. It's one of those three things.
Yeah.
They want it. Now, they are trying to get people registered who, don't even know what the country is.
And they're trying to give people amnesty, people that live here. They're trying to give them
amnesty. They want to give them citizenship, and they want to... Well,
and
how about what happened?
If you think about the amount of money that they've given them when they've come here, the food stamps, the benefits that even our poor people aren't getting.
$200 billion, and that's a way low number. That's a way low. It's interesting. New York has always been like, sort of like always looking for money. They've spent $100 billion on this stuff. I don't know where and they're not getting the money from the federal government. It's crazy. And because the mayor came out and said, we can't live like this.
They investigated him.
He gets by the way, I called it. I said, he just got himself indicted. This group is stupid, but they're vicious. They're stupid people, but they're vicious people.
The 2020 elections, you say you have all this evidence that it was rigged. Why haven't you put this evidence in a consumable form? In what?
Oh, I did. I have books on it. And by the way, books have been written on it. We have an author named Hemingway, who is a great writer. She wrote a book on it, but many books have been written on it. There are books that are... What's happened is judges don't want to touch it. They would say you don't have standing. They didn't rule on the merits. The merits never got there. The judges didn't have what it took to turn over an election.
Let's talk about the potential vulnerabilities for elections and election fraud. One of them is mail-in ballots. The other one is if someone can break into voting machines. If someone can hack voting machines. Those are two huge ones.
So
and
Elon
what can be
Musk,
done?
Elon Musk I think he said it publicly. I hope he did because I wouldn't want to be the one. But he's a really smart guy, and he's a very good guy with computers, right? You'd say he's
one of the smartest people alive.
Anybody that can land that 20-story building and perfect and boom,
while he's doing Starlink, while he's doing
talking
Tesla,
to me about
while he owns Twitter,
and then he agrees to Starlink,
and he tweets 100 times a day.
He's an amazing guy. Right?
Yeah,
he said to me that unless you have paper ballots, it can never be an honest election. That's a big statement.
It's a big statement.
We should go to paper ballots. You know, France did. They went to mail-in voting, and it was all messed up.
What can
the
be done?
Amazing thing with the machines? So we have the machines. They cost 10 times more. Paper ballot would cost 8%. And they make paper ballots, they're all watermarked and everything else. They're very sophisticated. But if you take a look, paper ballots, 8% the cost, and you're done by 9 o'clock in the evening, right? Now we have these sophisticated machine. It goes up to heaven. It goes all over the place and down and around. And they say, we'll need 2 weeks to figure out who the hell won the election.
Do you think that's by design?
Yeah, I do. I think it's very crooked. That's my opinion.
You're allowed to have an opinion. Let's say you win in November. What can be done to mitigate these problems? What could be done at the level that the president has power?
Well, if I win, this will be my last election. But I think I owe it to the country. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think I owe it to the country. We have to have fair elections.
So how can you fix that?
Jimmy Carter was in charge of a commission, that many years ago. And they put him and Scoop Jackson and various senators, distinguished people that were retired. And they came up with a report. And the report's primary finding was you cannot have mail-in ballots. Because if it's a mail-in ballot, I went to the voting booth the last time, whatever it was, and I walked in Palm Beach, and I walk in, and they know me. They say, Mr. President, could I see your identification? Yes, boom, here's this, here's that, everything. And then you sit and they watch you sign, and there's not a lot you can do. I mean, if you wanted to be dishonest, it's sort of beautiful.
Right.
If instead of that, I'm going to send them a ballot.
Right.
It has to go through the postal services. It has to go through a lot of people. They mail you houses that, the house was demolished and the people have left. And it's so bad. The one thing with Jimmy Carter, he had a very strong commission. It was no mail-in ballots. And we're the only one that does elections this way anymore. They've gotten away from
And
them.
this is it ticked up in a big way after COVID. It used to be like soldiers serving overseas.
They used COVID to cheat.
Yeah. Well, they used COVID to certainly push this mail-in ballot. Another thing
but they used COVID to cheat.
But here's another.
And the last election was a little bit of you couldn't even get security guys, big, strong guys to watch. You know what? You'd call them. They'd call them, and they were afraid to go out. We were in the middle of COVID. Mm-hmm. We were in the middle of COVID, right smack in the middle, and they didn't want to die. They didn't want to catch it. It was like, in a way, it was like a ghost town, and the whole thing. But mail-in ballots are a bad thing. That
certainly is a problem. Mail-in ballots are a problem.
But every
Another
other country,
problem is
other
voter
countries,
ID.
Yeah, a voter ID.
Voter ID is the most bizarre argument that I've never seen anybody articulate in a way that's convincing.
Because
why
they
you
want to
don't
cheat.
need voter. Well, it doesn't make sense any other way. I've tried to straw man it, or I tried to steel man it rather. I've tried to look at it from a position like, why would you not want people to have ID? And a lot of the ideas are
cheat.
Just ridiculous. You
Gavin
need an
Newsom.
ID to get a driver's license.
Okay, but here's now the next step. Gavin Newsom, one of the worst governors in the world, and I used to get along, but I don't get along with him now because he's just too, it's just a whole con job. But Gavin Newsom, the other day signed a bill that you are not allowed to even ask them whether or not they have a voter ID.
Now, what could be a charitable reason why anybody
because they
would
want
want
to cheat?
that? But that would be the only thing that makes sense.
But that's taking it to the next level.
Right.
Now, you have ID. The Democrat National Convention, when they had it the last time, I saw, they had a sign, like a billboard, on the name of the person, where they live, how they live, who the hell their boyfriends are. Every single... It was, and a big picture. That's for they have an ID, a big ID. It was hanging like you were a prisoner. They had these massive cards, everything. And yet when it comes to the vote, in theory, the most important thing we do, okay? When you go to a grocery store, you give ID. But for a vote, it's supposed to be a sacred thing, and it should be a sacred thing. No voter ID because they want to cheat.
Well, it doesn't make sense in any other way. I've tried to look at
There's
it.
no other way.
There's no argument that anybody's presented that makes any sense. Why?
You know the funny thing, Joe? The Democrats, the people, they all think you should have it. In other words, you should have voting.
Yeah.
If you go to the people, Mrs. Schwartz, Mrs. Smith, Mr. and Mrs. Jones,
Sure.
they say, of course, yeah. Democrats, they say yes. It's the politicians that don't want it, like Schumer and these guys, they don't want it because they want to be able to cheat. Because you know what? If they didn't have it, okay, who is going to vote for somebody that wants open borders? Who's going to vote for somebody that wants to have men playing in women's sports? You know, I have never had one person come up to me and say, President, you got to do something to allow men to play in women's sports. Have you ever? Just like I've never been called by a pollster. I told you my little theory on pollsters, okay? I'm getting myself in trouble with some of these things, but I don't really care. Nobody's ever come up to me and said, we want to have men play in women's sports. And, you know, I had a funny thing. At a property I own in California, I have a woman who's a very good athlete, and she works there as a manager. And Brian Urlacher, the big Chicago Bears, great player, you know, 10-time All-Star, I guess Hall of Famer, great guy, big, strong guy. And she said, oh, he's one of my favorite athletes. Can I have a picture? And I took a picture and I sent it. And I noticed she was the size of his leg. His leg was bigger than she was. And I put it out, should men play in women's sport? It was just so ridiculous.
What's one of the most bizarre and polarizing ideas that's promoted by the left?
But who wants it? Now, unless you're going to cheat in elections, you're never going to get. Nobody wants it.
Right.
I don't think anybody wants it. I've been told everything. You know, some people want this. I don't know of anybody that wants open borders. Nobody's ever come up to me and say, President, you got to let the world come into our country.
Right.
Now, if they won, so they have 21 million, I think it's much higher than that because you have gotaways. You know, gotaways where they just walk in, they walk in. But, and the other thing you have is human traffickers. You have traffickers, and they traffic in women, and they're going wild now. We used to, you know where you have to look? The trunk of cars. Can you believe it? They put women in trunks. They'll put 3 women in a trunk. These people are savages. They're horrible. The worst people. And they're making the kind of money they make on drugs, they're almost making on trafficking now. And the thing that's made it hot is the internet. That's what, you know, you think of it almost as an ancient thing, but it's the internet. But who would want to have these things? Who would want to have, there's so many, the transgender operations, where they're allowed to take your child when he goes to school and turn him into a male, to a female, without parental consent. Who wants this? Does anybody want this? I've never heard of anyone, and I can go into 10 different things. The only way they get them is by no voter ID. You can't have voter ID. They don't want any, they want to cheat. There's only one reason, because the voter ID is so basic. It's the most basic thing there is.
It's very basic.
Who would want this? They want it so they can cheat because their policies are